Hey guys, welcome to another great day. I'm excited for our passage today. It comes from Exodus chapter 34, verses 1 through 10. I chose this passage for a specific reason. While there's no direct correlation to Matthew chapter 5 and this specific teaching, I think that what is revealed by God in this passage is absolutely applicable to what we're trying to do this week as we are building our lives on the teachings of Jesus. Specifically this week, the teachings in Matthew 5, verses 38 through 48, as we seek to love the unlovable, to serve the unserveable, and to forgive the unforgivable. You see, in this passage in Exodus, Moses is going up to Mount Sinai to receive the 10 Commandments for the second time. He's going to receive the commandments, and he's asked that God would show him his glory. And so as he's going there, God hides him in a cleft of the mountain, for he says that if anyone were to see his face, he surely couldn't live. So there he is hiding in the cleft of the mountain, and God covers his hand, uses his hand to cover Moses as he passes by. And once God has passed by, God lets off his hand so that Moses can see the tail end of his glory. And as he opens his eyes, he's able to see, God reveals to himself, one, his name, and two, some very important characteristics about who he is. He says, the Lord, he declares as he passes by, he says, the Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love. You see, as those characteristics of God are revealed, it's amazing to think that that's the character of who our God is. As he reveals himself to Moses, he says, this is who I am. I'm merciful. I'm gracious. I'm slow to anger. And I'm full of steadfast love. You know, if we want to be able to love the unlovables, to serve the unservables, and to forgive the unforgivable, we have to take on some of those very same characteristics of God. Now, we won't fully get there this side of our great getting up morning, but that our lives are a passionate pursuit of that perfection, right? Our lives are a pursuit of taking on the very characteristics of God, becoming like God. It's a process called sanctification, where we become more and more like God, less and less like us, and more like God. So if we want this week to love the unlovables, to forgive the unforgivables, and serve the unservable, we have to be merciful and gracious, right? We have to not give people what some of them deserve. Some people will wrong us and they deserve a certain treatment, and we have to choose in some circumstances not to give that. That we have to be gracious, that we have to choose in some circumstances, maybe with the unservable, to give them something that they don't deserve. We have to be slow to anger. Now, that's not to say that anger is always wrong, but that we have to be slow to anger. That we can't just let our temper take control of us and to blow up in every given situation at our wife or our friend or our best friend. That we have to be slow to anger, and that our anger should come because it's something that is against God. That if there's something that is against what God would teach, against his more principles, an injustice to another person, that we can be angry about that. We can't be angry that McDonald's dollar menu went to $2 menu. That's not an injustice to be angry about. So we're to be slow to anger, and then we're to be full of steadfast love. That we're to have a love inside of us, that we're to let out a love that is faithful, as Exodus 34 says, to even all generations, to the third and fourth generation, that our love can never be as great as God's love, but that we are to pursue to love in that way, to love the unlovable as God has loved us, because we were once enemies of God. Before Jesus Christ, we were enemies of God, and yet because what he did and the sacrifice that he made on the cross, being resurrected again on the third day, that we through faith in him can no longer be enemies of God, but become children of God. So today I want to encourage you, go Old Testament on somebody. Go Old Testament on somebody and like God, be slow to anger. Be full of mercy and grace, and be full of steadfast love. And when you do that, you're going to find that you'll be able to live out the very things that Jesus teaches, the very things that he lays out in Matthew chapter 5 that we're looking at all this week. Our memory verse is Matthew chapter 5, verse 41. Memorize it, take it to heart, and then go do something about it. I love you guys. Let's go change the world.